I didn't feel that these are my peers. When I arrived, they're more like meeting friends and family. I think that is the essence of Kuching, I must say. So Kuching has completely different ambience of relationship between people. That I could also sense that when Arlene presents. There's a few things that I felt strongly with connected to Arlene when she showed her office. That is my jealous dream working place. Then the other is how transparent it's how she want to connect the spaces to the outside. So Formzero is a super micro research studio. Right now, apart from we do super mini projects, we also collaborate and also serve as a think tank for MOA architects. So sometimes we collaborate, sometimes we work together, sometimes we compete with each other. So there is a love and hate relationship with MOA architects. So some of the projects I'm going to show today, some are collaborate with MOA architects. Formzero was founded in 2012, so I think it has been running 6 years. For the last 6 years, we built very, very little. Every project is painstakingly long. There is a few basic principles I want to share with everyone, how we slowly shape the ideology of what we're trying to do. Today's topic is called Landscape Is. The landscape is sort of interim conclusions of all these years, what we have built up, and how do we slowly shape the ideology of crossing different disciplines between architecture, urban design, and urban landscapes. And slowly also we want to take shape to mold what exactly is tropical architecture is in the contemporary context, especially I would say in Kuala Lumpur or in a much broader pictures in Malaysia. So there's a lot of questions that we constantly ask. I think I want to take architecture as an opportunity to question things rather than make it as a firm definitions. So every project from one jump to another one is actually evolved questions rather than evolved thought. So I want to share this. Don't worry, I'm not going to show these projects in case you are upset. A 40-story, 5-star hotel in Kuala Lumpur. That is my last project as a project architect when I worked for someone. So before I departed to form Formzero. So after I left this tower, upon its completion, like I think almost like every architect, you just want to start to build something your own. So we got this tiny little shop house. I think it lasts about maybe already 100 years before we took over these houses. It's in Salak Selatan, Salak South, at the border of KL. It has been there for quite some time, and then the owner just don't want to manage it and sold this house to us. So if you compare the scale that before and after, how it changed what I do, that is almost the right scale in pictures. So 40 stories, and then drop to 2-story. The original budget for the tower is 300 million, and then we drop down to not even 300,000 projects. So we decided to convert this. Ideally, I wanted to change it, turn into my office, but for the money reason, maybe we should give it a try to turn into a super micro boutique hotels. It's actually a very basic guest house. So the process of starting this project is completely unusual. I myself, maybe like many designers, is a control freak. Means I want to control everything. I want to make sure everything is in place. I want to make sure everything is known before I enter the site or before I start constructions. But when I saw all the conservation project, I always take a step back because there's too much unknown, too much surprise when you open the door and you take down the ceilings, and then you full of surprise that sometimes upset you, sometimes surprise you. So the left picture is what we got when we opened the door. So it's a general plaster ceiling with a steel staircase in the middle. Then the right picture is what starts to remove the plaster ceiling, and then you just see all the 100 years old timber joists running it. Then we thought, oh, maybe slowly reveal what it is part of the process. By this time, I already have one full set of drawn that based on my intentions. And I thought I'm going to build a dream guest house. But after we start to slowly remove every single bit of the house, and then it slowly changed my mind. So the drawing constantly changed. So from day one until it is completed, the design is completely different. So there's a back portion of the house that we also completely remove. Then we want to try to maximize and reuse whatever existing material you have. That includes to recycle the steel staircase. And also all the timber that we remove, we will put it back for something else. And there's so many layers of plaster in this house. I don't know how many owner generation has been changed. But I guess every time when they renovate, there is a new added layers on top. So we see that this is a process of slowly review layers by layers of what it was before. Again, there's a lime plaster together with brick wall. The brick wall is about 600 mm, 2 feet thick, load bearing, so there's no concrete at the times. And you also can see that over the few generations of owner, the pitch roof has also changed. Sometimes after they remove the original, then they put on the corrugated metal. And they don't really want to follow what was it before. And when you climb to the roof, you see there's 3 lots adjoined to each other, and all the roofs are in different form. And that could be the most original, and then this is another generation, and this is another generation. Now I will come to like on the 100 years generations. So after we remove, we want to just create as much natural light and ventilation as possible for this house, purely because we don't want to pay much electricity for aircon. And there's 2 parts very painful in this process. Number 1 is we constantly change our idea. Number 2 is I have to work with my father. He's a contractor. And everything he do, he constantly disagree with me. He couldn't understand what am I doing, but he just follow. And whatever he's done wrongly, I cannot change also. So I have to learn how to compromise. So this is the first time I always compromise to contractor. Before that, all the contractor have to compromise. So then after we remove everything in the middle, then we build a mini tower, 3-story houses at the back. We thought that there, in many ways, the new and old should form a strong contrast rather than everything trying to mimic what was it before. And the new part we added at the back of the house is everything using hollow block concrete, and it is load bearing. This hollow block concrete can allow you to go up to maximum 5-story without a single concrete element. The reason is very simple. We cannot afford to pay to engineer to design the structures. So what this hollow concrete block is that the manufacturer actually give you a manual of how to construct. So it's like instructions to put up a IKEA furniture. So long as you follow every single detail according to the manual instructions, any contractor can do without engineer. So that's a fantastic system. But the downside is, if you want to keep the finish of the hollow block, the contractor and the worker has to be carefully, one by one, laid accordingly. So there's a lot of on-site coordinations. So I never been working on a site that I have to go there almost every single day. And I have to talk to the worker, Indonesian worker, one by one, and to tell them where exactly is the power point, because everything is concealed. That's what the contractor would not like to do. And we also did a central staircase to add the west side. And this central staircase, at first, when it's done, it hasn't has a staircase yet, so it's a triple height volume void. So this central staircase, when we look at that, we say, wow, the mass and the enclosure, it's what we like, because it's very cool. At the same time, we also want that the movement inside the staircase create a sense of a very strong vertical movement. So that movement should have a contrast to the brick wall. At the same time that we saw, maybe the staircase should be as light, as transparent as possible, but I cannot afford glass. And we decided, say, maybe we do a mesh staircase, but again, I don't have an engineer. So I don't get engineer to calculate for me. Everything what we can do is I go to the site, we bend the steel mesh together with the contractor, then we'll put up everything together. So at the end, you see that there's two colors in these sections. One is the red brick, which is the original. Then the other one is the hollow concrete block that we insert at the back. Everything is invert. There's no view outside the street. It was very ordinary. So we thought that that is the way to lock people in and completely untouched the front facade, which is the upper floor. Then the lower floor, the ground floor, we put up the hollow blocks with a giant metal door. There is a big contrast between inside and outside. That before you enter the house, the sense of scale appear on the facade doesn't seem to be like a grand space. So the moment people enter through the door, and it will completely open up. I think it's a very simple trick in many classical architecture, that how the before and after scale has changed, even though the elements remain very straightforward and in a normal human scales. But because of the transitional, every time people open up the door, they look up, suddenly there is a 3-story with a giant courtyard, with the tree almost cover the entire courtyard. That wow effect pretty much surprised everyone. And then, so you look up, all the tree basically will just fill up, give a good shade to the house. And there's a 4 bedrooms, identical 4 bedrooms on the upper floors, that they all has a large balcony facing the gardens. So once you enter, you will completely forget the outside. So we thought that the landscape we adopt in this case, that to create a complete introvert world, it is used as an infill. So this infill basically the landscape become the subject itself, rather than the building. Because the first thought that we have is to having the landscape as the central object, rather than to think where exactly is the building, or what is our architecture. And every balcony would have swing chairs. Basically, there's quite a few famous crane chair makers in KL. So we go to ask them to customize some swing chair for us. So we try to do everything as much as handmade as possible in this house. We try to avoid buying off-shelf furniture from IKEA. So all the bed frames, tiny little desk lamp, actually the lamp casted by myself at home because I don't have worker. And I think such a tiny things you can't really ask contractor to do. So sometimes I just want to get my hand dirty. After so many years that the main con will do everything for you, I think it's an opportunity to get dirty ones. So because of the irregularity of the block wall and the imperfect workmanship, so you get this very nice tactility on the wall. And how the relationship between the pool reflects the brick wall. And this is the effect when we only install one spotlight on top of the light wells on the staircase at night. So when you turn it on, we only need one light for the 3 stories. So it will just shoot down the entire staircase. I think that saves a lot of electricity. So at first we wasn't really thinking from a pure architectural point of view. Including all the stools, kitchen tops, legs, everything, it's all custom-made. That is the livings and the pool. Another thought we have is that when we want people to enjoy on the ground level, we literally don't want to have a clear separations between spaces. So we don't really have a so-called living area and the entertainment area or the kitchens. So everything is pretty much merged into one. And we purposely bring in the pool together with the filter systems that serving as the sitting deck as part of the living area. So when the kids is playing at the pool, that the parents actually sit beside. So the second project is a much more serious project. Bungalow at the fringe of Kuala Lumpur on the north side. So when we got these jobs, we were invited to visit the site. We look at this and say, wow, there's a reserve forest at the back, and that is a cliff. And beyond the cliff is Kuala Lumpur view. So this is the dream site for every architect. So I was so excited when I saw this. When we discussed with the client, say, what do you want to do? He said, can you chop down all the tree and so that we can see this? I can understand that, of course. KLCC view is everything in Kuala Lumpur. They will sacrifice all the trees, all the forests. I don't know how many trees has been chopped down because of KLCC. And when clients bought this land, they thought that that is the only intentions. I completely understand that. So we were so upset when we got these requirements. But I thought maybe there's some hope. We should do something about it. So that is a basic brief. Chop down all trees in order to see KLCC. 8 bedrooms plus 10 bathroom. Huge house. They don't really like gardening, so try not to have much landscapes. They are a couple same age as me, the owner, with 2 little daughters. I said, why you need so many spaces? He said, in case I have a lot of family want to come to visit, which is fine, and that's very normal. So I look around all the neighbors. That is very typical neighbors that you see in most of the gated bungalow area. So there's another neighbor. So we start to observe. So what is it like to live in the gated bungalow neighborhood? So as usual, you see all these neighbor, they have large window. They put down their curtains. I don't really think they want to see each other, even though having large window, I think is a must for bungalow. But at the same time, you don't want to see your neighbor because you try not to have eye contact. That is a very dilemmatic, yet very realistic, conventional experience for everyone. So we thought maybe we should do something about it to deal with the neighboring relationship and view. But yet you also want to give them a good view. And I started to thought that what is really traditional. So if you're back in the ancient times, like where in the old streets, that the street is just very, very close to the pedestrians, and you see old lady open the window and they just stare at you. They're completely fine with it. Why we cannot enjoy that relationship? Maybe the structure, the social structure system is changed. We decided to do a house that deal with windows. So we call it window house. So it is a house that because we already maximize the volume with such a large space. So it's about 10,000 square feet house on 7,000 square feet lot. In total is 4-story. So when we power up all the spaces, you pretty much fill up all the spaces. So you don't really have much to do a cool form, I would say. And yet, I don't want the house appear too big like other neighbors' house. They really look like gigantic mansions. When I think that's a gigantic mansion, when I come to Sarawak, then I start to know our mansion is really tiny. I think Sarawak has a different idea of mansions. I think they should not call bungalow, they are like mansions. That is a great experience. So my house becomes quite a small house to you. So I personally really like green. So we thought, how do we introduce green back to this owner who doesn't really appreciate gardens? So I don't really emphasize too much on green when I present the scheme because I don't want to upset the client. He will. But soon or later, when they saw the plan, they will want to cut down. So we find a trick to see how we can revert that. So a house that compound all the spaces, as you can see, then we say, all these terraces, balcony, they can grow some simple gardens on top. But then at the same time that we still want a lot of window, like any big window, like any bungalow. So what do? We say, okay, maybe we give it a screen, a giant screen, a shell that will protect your house to prevent your neighbor look into you. And so it serves two things. Number one, some of the window you really look out, you see nice views, and then the indoor gardens, we call it indoor gardens, that make you feel like, wow, you still have a sense to connect to the outside world, the landscape. Yet your nosy neighbor auntie would not really stare at you when you have your curtain opened. So, and we thought the windows should do more. They should not be generic. They should not be just cut a window when you need it. So we thought that every room should have its own characteristic, has its different proportional window, and it should deal with more specific functions according to what is behind that little square opening. So we start to really specifically ask the client to sit down with us to go through every single spaces. And I think symbolically, we also want the house serve like a giant window frame to look at the city, and also like a telescope, because it's in a telescopic shape, to look at the forest. To make sure we fulfill the most important requirements, we have to raise the house high enough on the upper floor to see KLCC. At the time, we don't have drones, so we don't really can predict how high is high and what can we see beyond those trees. So I told the client, say, let's don't chop the tree yet. Let's build the house until on the top floor. And the house is actually all the trees is beyond their boundary. They want to chop down the reserve forest. So the client said, okay, let's wait and see. And that was the result of the design. That it's very basic. It just compiled of rooms with a giant concrete shells. So when we reach this stage, we complete all the schematics. The engineer says, no, we cannot deliver this. There's too much cantilever of thin concrete roof that can deliver out, that we cannot deliver. It's beyond their knowledge. And they say, why don't you put a lot of columns to prop it? Then me and my client say, no, we would not accept that. Maybe we should just redesign everything. Because that just killed the entire scheme. Before we really give up that, we were introduced by Bubble Deck, which is very, very popular today. This Bubble Deck, look at the model. Theoretically, by calculation, everything works, but nobody has done it to this scale, to this slope, this gradient. So it cannot be done. They never done, so no way. Then I went on another meeting, called the boss, sit down with him, show him the model, ask him to think twice. And at the end, he thought that maybe he should give a chance to challenge these projects. So they accepted. And finally, it works. By calculations, everything okay. But when it comes to build the roof, basically all the floor are done in Bubble Decks also in this house. So the column position is very, very flexible. So we also do a lot of mock-up tests. After mock-up tests, the contractor that we employ, they are very ordinary contractor. They just do plaster and paint and ordinary window, this and that. So they never see anything like that. And when he do the tender, he obviously didn't look at the drawings and the image. So he just looked at BQ. So when you come to site, we start to run the jobs, start to surprise him. So after mock-up of testing the concrete, change the concrete types, changing the formwork, changing the methods, he finally get it. So some of the view is really, really fantastic. You look out, it's perfectly framed, the Batu Cave as one of the view. And also the coordination is very, very heavy between us and the contractor to get the window position right, the right edges, the right colors. But unfortunately, because of lack of the experience, they don't really know how to handle the finishes, the concrete. And you can see that there's a lot of overspills every time when they move on to the next level. And when we remove everything, everyone was completely wow, because nobody has really done, between me and the contractors. So they are so proud that they have done something beyond what they think they can do. So up until this stage, we thought everyone is very satisfied and happy, except the client. So we went up to the roof. So this is my contractor. So we went up to the roof. There's a roof terrace. The roof is actually not walkable, but we actually climb out. And we really see the KLCC, but it's just a bit too tiny. But we get a good view of the Batu Cave. So that is a roof terrace, actually. It's a very, very mini roof terrace. And we purposely resize the windows so that you get a really, really deep frame if you look out from inside. Of course, the plan always changes, especially in Bungalow. We have some cutout skylight, and we also allow some of the concrete shells has no more internal window. So this is the internal corridor. So the internal corridor is completely connected to outside. So I ask the client, I say, are you okay? The mosquito and the birds may fly in. They say, okay, it's fine. Let's sleep in and experiment. So now has been 1 year plus. They are completely fine with it. This is before I hand over. So me and my client were standing outside the house looking at it. They are not really happy. So the wife said, this house has no makeup. How can we show it to the outside, to the friends and family? But the husband is pretty honest. He said, it's fine, I can keep one side wall raw. You can put paint on the other side. So the wife said, yes, I want to keep one side for me. Then the husband wanted to keep the other side. Then I said, no way. How can I have one house that have one side painted, the other side not painted? So that is the result. So the wife won the battle. So they both agree, okay, we're going to paint. But I haven't given up. So after that, we do some many different type of paints and coating to see how do we reduce the rawness. So eventually, we put on a very, very light coating that sort of minimize the different tones, but actually keep the wall quite clean. And it also whiten the wall a little bit. If you go to Japan, you actually see a lot of that. They use that a lot, quite frequent. So we're using a special Japan coating to put on. And the wife said, okay, fine. She still really hesitates about that. She hasn't shown to any friends and relatives. So they don't want to show to anyone. So they're really, really careful about this. And then all the neighbors start to gossip about this house. And not only that, the neighbors send drone to take pictures of the house, to look from top, bottom, left, and right. They're really trying to, because it's really difficult visually to penetrate into this house. I think the window effect really works. So when it's facing the street, you can see that the one that facing the street is actually smaller, and then the one at the back actually is much, much taller. So all the little tiny little windows is facing the front, and then there's a lot of big window actually is hiding inside the shell. And then behind this shell, as you can see, there's a large window. So there's a lot of function and little privacy function is actually hiding behind the concrete shell. And this is the family. Once they move in, they are completely satisfied. They are so happy. Everyone loves it. So this is the lady owner. One of the study room that we designed, it nearly has no wall, but we also have a folding door, glass door, so that you are really not sure whether you are sitting in a garden or you're inside the room. So there's this ambiguity between inside and outside, or garden and landscape and architecture. It's quite blur. So we think that the landscape, the role play in this house, it could be an interface. An interface is a condition that sandwich or create a relationship between two conditions. So in this case, it really deal with private and public. It deal with inside and outside. At the same time, it also act as a filter. Because the shell is only applied between west and east, so it works thermally. It is perfectly cooling down the entire house. So the wall is about 250 thick, so it pretty much serves as a good thermal insulation to the house. So some of the spaces that we inject between the spaces, these garden spaces, is like this master bathroom. The lady owner look at it and say, who is going to step outside to take shower? 6 months later, we meet again, chit-chat. She said, Cherng, do you know, sometime in the midnight, I will go outside, take a shower. It feels really good. And because there's a little jasmine tree planted beside the bathtub, he said, at the midnight, it smells really good in the bathroom. I think that house changed a lot of the owner lifestyle. He said, now we start to really appreciate what really, how the garden can really, green can change their lifestyle, which is, I think that was a best news, best result, I would say. They're really funny. They will put a sculpture, a giraffe to eat a tree leaf. And also some light wells inside the house. We dig out quite a lot of stones, the granite stones, when we do the foundations. And then there's lots of leftover, so I told the contractor, I said, can you keep it, then we will use it later. So at the end, but so much of them has been thrown to the backyard and becoming the cover of the slope. But there's a small portion that we kept that I turned into the bottom stone wall for the front gate. So it sort of symbolized that how the concrete actually sit on the existing granite. And pretty much same as the halaman guest house, that we also, when we have a solid wall, we want the staircase to be as light as possible so that it's actually accentuates the feeling, the experience of moving up and down. Again, when we come to these elements, we don't really, I have engineer on this project, but they can't really design the staircase because everything they do is super bulky and big. So I decided to do it ourselves, between me and my contractor. So what we do is we just make so many mock-up of steps and get a few fat guys to jump on it to show. I think, so whether, except Irene is slightly more lucky that his engineer will support her to jump on it, whereas my engineer doesn't. So me and my contractor, we really have to jump on. So if it's not enough, if it's too springy, we just add more angle, steel angle inside the thread until it feels really, really solid. So end of the result. And also the client said, can you be more playful about your staircase? We said, fine. So there's one private study room that we do with the mezzanine that we say, let's do the same trick, but in a different way. So this staircase is completely transparent. So that lightness is even more than the previous staircase. And we managed to get a very good steel contractor that understand our detail, understand our aesthetics so well that they know how I wanted to weld the bar, the steels, the connections. And of course, many mock-ups have been done and changed in order to achieve that. And we have an infinity pool beside the forest. And end of the day, the highest floor that you look up, yes, you see a tiny bit of the KLCC. We were invited to visit a site somewhere in Seremban on the way to Production. So it's quite far away from Kuala Lumpur. The yellow dotted line is hundreds of acres for a new housing development. And we were commissioned to do a small sales gallery pavilion in the middle of this land. As you know, when you do a huge master plan for such a, I think there's about 7 phases of housing is going to put inside here. That most of the times they don't really respect and try to understand the nature and the topography of the site. So, and the existing site is palm oil plantations. So when we went to see these sites, that there's a lot of bushes already surrounded the oil plantation. I think the oil plantation has been left for quite some time unused. So we were looking at this very beautiful undulating landscape. So what we discovered is that this is what they left for us. So it's all this Sangat rubber tree that swing towards south for whatever reason. And then slowly I realized that there's lots of rubber tree in other plantations is like this. So we're so happy. But by this stage, I saw this picture. We have already done our submissions. So that means that our scheme should already incorporated with this landscape. But we have prepared for this. So we think, great. This is exactly what we were hoping that will happen. So we try around inside, we say, wow, this is fantastic. So that is the timeline we were given. I know it's quite unrealistic to the coaching friends when they see this timeline. 3-month design, including submissions, approval, and then we were given, say, you only need to build it within 6 months. So they are using in-house contractor. When the in-house contractor look at the design, they say impossible. There's nobody can do it unless you get China contractor. So, but we managed to done it in 9 months, the whole process. So it's a very fast-tracked project. So here is our trick. So we keep the rubber forest in the middle. So we propose to them, we say, what about if the entire experience of visiting your gallery is to walk through the existing rubber forest? And the rubber forest actually serve as the entrance before you enter. So it is exactly like you look at before you really open the veil of your bride and you don't really see her face until you open up, then you say, surprise. So we thought that maybe that process can be really extended a bit. But again, when the marketing team from the developer said, no, all my VIP should drop right in front of the main door. You can't ask them walk with a high heel through the forest. So we say, that's what we want. So everyone will go through a sort of nature path before they enter, before they really see what exactly is the building looks like. And so that's a compromise. So at the end, we still managed to squeeze in the path, and then together with a shortcut for VIP car. When we look at the requirements, so we just lay down, then we see, oh, there's this much of spaces required. It's very basic, like every gallery. Then we look at what really define all these spaces. It's not just a different floor area. There's a hierarchy in terms of the order and scale, sizes, public and private. So we arrange it in the linear experience. At the end, we thought maybe the experience from the outside to inside should reflect the scale of the spaces and the order. So after we shaped a few rounds, we thought that maybe this shape should actually represent the missing hill that we have flattened. So we thought that maybe the gallery, it can be acted as a personal memorial. Of course, we never explained that to the clients. So that project was done with this model, and the client looked at it, they were really happy without much explanations. They just thought that it's cool. Then when it comes to the technicality, again, I think we are really used to fight with the engineer. So there's a lot of structural concerns on how exactly to build a giant opening, giant space, and irregularities. So one day the engineer, halfway of the discussion, the engineer said, hey, Mr. Lee, can you square up all the room and window so that we can fasten the process and make the calculation easier? So I sent a text to his boss, I said, can you fire your engineer? How can he ask me to change all my design to suit his calculations? So there's a lot of painful process. If you are not determined to work with your engineer, at the end, every step is a compromise. Every step will be diluted. So we wanted a full concrete wall. At the end, because of the time constraints, we decided to go the most typical RC framework with infill bricks. Then we also want to accentuate the thickness of the shell and the openings. So the window actually is playing a role that highlight the scale of the space. Sometimes we are quite lucky. We managed to frame some really interesting landscapes, the existing tree. And because the whole form was done in the hill form, that start from 0 to the top. So the way we do the building inspections, we actually walk up to the roof. But of course, the roof is not designed for visitor to walk. And during the daytime, before the building is completed, all the workers, they actually rest in the forest. No matter how hot it is, the forest is always the coolest place for the worker. End of the day, everyone is having the most pleasant experience, not in the building, it's actually in the forest. So that is the entrance. When you park your car, that is what you see. You don't really see a full pictures of the buildings. You are just prepared to discover. And you just walk through the forest in this winding path. And end of the day, I take this project slightly personally. I think there's many rational ways to explain project, but in this case, it is a project that full of memory. So I think landscape can be done in a memory form. And I'm very happy that the landscape designer is willing to incorporate a lot of thoughts, such as how much we can mix between the nature, the existing, together with the path. Again, there is a huge contrast between before you enter and after you enter. So you can see the scale changed quite drastically after you enter. So the central corridor also serves like a winding path that from front to the ends, and the ceiling will keep dropping very fast. And in the middle, actually at the last bit of the building, it's actually a central courtyard for the back of our office, so that all the offices surrounding the central court. The facade skin is using expanded mesh that is oriented vertically, so that from one direction you see it's nearly transparent, then from the other it's very, very solid. At the same time, it also serves as a sun shading for the buildings. So you can see that the building stretches really, really long. So if you just look at this picture, it feels much longer than it is. This is a mini terrace house, a typical terrace house in Kuala Lumpur, Bangsa. So it's a very, it's one of the most high-class neighborhoods in KL right now. So I was commissioned by a retired couple. The lady is a medical professor. The husband is working for a voluntary refugee school. So when we look at the neighborhood, it is a neighborhood that has been heavily, there's a lot of changes from roof, from facades, there's a lot of extensions after the years. So the street doesn't have a consistent terrace house image. So that is our project. So the left and right are different owner, and they haven't done much, this existing house, and people hasn't lived in there for a long time. So the lady owner inherited this from their family. This is the brief. They really love gardens, so it really suits my taste. They only need 2 bedrooms. Good ventilations, lots of natural light, and very low energy. That is all fine, except this. Nearly has no budget. So we have to play tricks. So there's no perfect clients. When we have, they love everything except no money, or they have money but they don't like you. This is either way. So fine, I still accept, since you have no other jobs to do. So we look at that, we say, look at the profile of the house. We question the horizontality of how we typically look at houses and buildings that is defined by floor to floor. And then this floor to floor always projected to the facade. And also we want to think about the boundary. Boundary define our relationship between one to the others. So because of the boundary, everything seems too clear-cut. And because of the boundary, everything is separated. Can we relook at boundary? And also the linearity of the street. The linearity of the street is what defines how pedestrians walk and how we interact with the neighbor. So we thought that maybe this is a chance for us to question this, to look at how we can revamp this basic, ordinary, everyday experience. And also the gates. The gates also serve as the first layers to filter the privacy, the securities, and it's actually the first image of the house. The first experience is the gate, but the gate is always there. So can we integrate the gates into the house rather than the gate serve as the last element that we need to design? So we look at the section of the house. Because the owner wants to demolish the whole thing and just rebuild, so we have to find the cheapest way to build the house. The red line is a front boundary with the existing tree in front. So after we demolish, the first thought we had is that the streetscapes of Terrace house is not really a fantastic scenery to look at. But yet, we still need a lot of window because of the sunlight. Since it is an intermediate house, how do you introduce a lot of glass yet you don't want to see your neighbor? That's very common. So we thought, let's make another internal garden. But we are not making an internal courtyard this time. We are making an external garden. So we only have horizontal slabs with trees in front and behind, and more trees in front and behind, and another layers until the rooftop. So we make sure that if you are inside in every corner, any corner of the house, whatever you look outside, you only see green. There's no neighbor. And what about the partitions? Whatever partitions inside, it's all glass. So there is only two elements, the horizontal slab and vertical glass, plus some green outside. And we also look at the typical breakdown of the facade, which is going by horizontal. So we thought maybe we want to confuse people. How tall is it? How big is it? And how many levels is it? So we start to mess up the facade. So end of the day, the cladding, the facade, is actually full of planter box. So this planter box jumping up and down. So the planter box serves so many purposes. Apart from what I just said, that it actually is a filter between inside and outside. It also raises up and down. Some of them actually they become the shower. They also integrated become the sink, and there also is a fence wall for the toilet. And the planter actually will also adjust its height because on one side is higher than the other side. So when they are higher on the other neighbor, if you look to the sideway, you actually see KLCC. Again, KLCC is very, very important, trust me. So after we realized that we constantly adjust the planter height, and because they have no good relationship with this neighbor, so everything is higher on this side. So they make sure that the other neighbor will not see them. And apart from that, we also look at this tree. We thought maybe this tree is actually our first planter instead of waiting this. So the planter do a lot of things. And the owner will say, what about turning this planter, the first planter, into a public seating? So that when the neighbor do the dog walk, they can sit, stop by, and then we give them some dog walk facility and things like that. I say, cool. So we also cast the planter exactly the same way as what we cast other planter. So basically all the mailbox, everything is integrated into the planter. So the planter just serves so many purposes. So it is called planter box house. When we come to do the planter, we thought that maybe the planter should represent certain rawness and organic of the plants. rather than over artificial. So we do many texture tests, artificial, different materials. None of this please the clients. At this stage, the client is quite picky because this client is not ordinary. The male client is actually a furniture designer, so he really understands how material reflects, how the texture and material reflects the functions of the object. That is fantastic. At what level you can have intellectual discussions with your clients. So they are not happy, say, what do we do? So they say, hey, I visited this orang asli temuan in Seremban, or other orang asli. They really know how to make use of bamboo and turn into a very ecological buildings with this wall. So say, can we use this wall as our formwork? I said, cool, let's try. So we buy, they managed to find this orang asli called temuan from Seremban, to build a split bamboo formwork for us. So then the main con just tested it and applied to the formwork. And when we remove, we said, wow, that maybe exactly is what we want. So at the same time that we also don't really worry that what the rain stains that running on the wall because everything is vertical, so be it. So the client really embraced it. And the irregular of the texture running on the wall is slightly beyond our control, which is fine. So the relationship between window house and planter box house is this owner is a cousin of the bubble deck. That's how I got to know these clients. So we say, okay, let's use bubble deck because it's really cheap for this owner. So we integrated the bubble deck together with the bamboo. It looks like a very odd couple because one is like really indigenous, local. The other one is a foreign, contemporary technology. But they have a good marriage actually after all. So this is what you see from every single room. There is literally no other wall. When you see these pictures, it is very much close to completions. Apart, there's no furniture and lighting because all the rest is just normal white or concrete. And when you look at the balcony, the planter will just go up and down, depends on the functions. And the back living room has this, actually it's a kitchen and dining, has this giant huge void. They're looking at the neighbor. We say, what do we do? We say, okay, we're supposed to have a planter, but very last minute the owner drop it. We say, what do we replace? We still need a filter, a visual filter. So at the end, this whole thing is filled with creeper plants that run 2-story that you may get to see a bit later. And this is other living rooms with the same contractor. Sometimes when you come to a project like this, the contractor will do their usual markings on my finishes. They thought that the plaster is coming. So, but at the end, and also there's a lot of missing pipeline there that's waiting to be installed. So, and of course they painfully removed this pin after they realized that. This is almost a month before completion. So we look at that and say, wow. Every neighbor is asking this question. Pass by, say, are you serious? And in front of this house is one of the most famous Malaysian architects looking at it every day. So he tells his staff, say, no, I don't really like this. And my neighbor, it's also architects, constantly complain to the authority. But the owner say, I think the owner is really patient when they look at this. They say, let's wait. We believe that it's going to turn out well. So Jade is a professor, Seamus is a furniture designer, very lovely couple. And then they start to grow. So when we started as an urban landscape, as a facade for the house, the discussion slowly elevated to become, why don't you grow food instead of just a visual landscape? So I said, cool. So halfway, we start to adjust the function of the planter and the system of it. Because if you decided to grow food, to grow edible plants, the method to do the planter is slightly different. The irrigations, the soil depth, the water reservoir in every single planter box is adjustable. So, and the client is really full-time engaged with us to do coordination on site. And they grow more than 40 types of plants, edible plants in this house right now. And they constantly send me pictures. Even though I won't say it's super high productive use, but they really enjoy every single bite. Every single dishes is the most delicious fruit and veggie for them. And they constantly learn also. They also exchange different type of banana with the neighbor, different type of chili. They oversupply actually because the chili overgrown so much, whatever reasons. So at the end of the day, landscape is not gardens. Landscape originally it's actually served as a food. So we just return to what it is. And we waited nearly a year to take these pictures just because we just need the plant to grow. But one day a professor stopped by. He said, why you take so long? This house, I don't think it will ever finish. It's just in progress. It's constantly in progress. Because the owner will keep adjusting the functions, will keep replacing the plants. It's never looked the same every year. Then I suddenly wake up, say, why are we architecture when we completed it is considered the end of it? It's the end of the process. I think the process should be prolonged together with the owner if possible. And if you look down, the cascading of the planter really offset from one level to the other so that we make sure that it gets full sunlight. And you can see there's a lot of pipe overflow here and there. There's I think 3-4 species of banana. Halfway when we remove the formwork from the bamboo formwork, there's a lot of bamboo fiber stuck inside. I was so uncomfortable. I am a perfectionist. I say I cannot accept that. I want to go to remove this fiber by myself, one by one. But after one or two, I say that's nearly impossible. There's just too many. I say at the end we say so be it. Maybe this fiber embedded into the concrete is what made the whole appearance like a semi-organic that represent what is to reduce the sense of artificialness. And that's Professor Robert. When he come to visit, then they will discuss how to grow paddy on the roof. So the owner is really enthusiastic about growing. So everything he wants to experiment. And so you see this is the living room. We look out only a window together with the planter. Behind the planter is the street. So this is the ground level. And this is also ground level. Behind the planter, it's the bathroom. So we make sure everything is super transparent and super bright inside. This is a shower. There is an external shower for, again, only for male owner. That's for lady owner. I'm not sure whether she will go out and take shower. And there's their bedroom. So everyone thought that this is a windowless house. Once they got in, they didn't know that the house is super bright. And there's a huge terrace on the rooftop. Because we want to keep everything very, very transparent from front to the end. So the staircase, we also make it super thin plate, so that from front to the end, you hardly visually blocked by the staircase. As usual, it was done by the same contractor who understands me, that I don't need to explain too much now. They save so much time in drawing sometimes if the contractor understands you. So from the first plant enter to the very back of the house, and that is the dining area. You see, at the time we took this photo, the creeper hasn't grown yet. It is still barely empty. And now slowly, a few months ago, I went back, then I started. I think now they are nearly fully filled up the entire openings. That's drawing done by us, but the whole composition of how the owner did that all by himself. So they attended courses to understand all the farming system, and they get the idea of how soil is composed in the forest and interpreted it into their planter. And then in the entire system, the whole planter is like the traditional terrace paddy, that water flow from one to the other, and there's two super big rainwater harvesting tanks collect at the back and then start to feed to every single floor, and then at the end. So this owner is very ambitious. He started a community. He wanted to start a community that he say, what if my overflow start to overflow to the neighbor? Can we grow more food beyond the boundary? And in the middle of the house, we have a stack shaft that allowed the hot air to go through. It has been a year they live inside. They forgot to turn on the aircon. So I said, you cannot do that. Then the aircon will break down. I know the house is not hot, but you still have to turn on the aircon sometimes to check. Then last month they checked, they say it breaks down. I don't know whether it's good or bad, just. So you see this is the stacked glass. It's actually completely enclosed, that you allow it to completely enclose so that the air will flow through. And you see that from the left and the right, it's also completely transparent. So there's no solid partition in the middle. I think there's a lot more possibility of how we can make use of landscape, or how we look at landscape. I think landscape is not really the physical subject that we are looking at. We just want to borrow the idea of how we can change the meaning of landscapes, and then maybe landscapes can bridge between different disciplines, and landscape maybe is a form that bring us out, and maybe landscape can be the main driver to change the way we design architecture. Hopefully in some of the upcoming projects, we get a different way to discuss this. Thank you very much.